What do you say, everybody? With Tony Tsoukalas and Trey Yannity, I'm Mick Gillespie. It's time for Monday Night Quarterback. That's right here on your favorite place to get Alabama news. That's Bama Insider, BamaInsider.com. Of course, that is the Alabama Crimson Tide rival site with National Signing Day wrapping up tomorrow, right? I mean, that's what we're expecting anyway. We got a lot to talk about tonight as pertains to the University of Alabama and the Crimson Tide. But before we get there, I want to ask everyone that's watching tonight, give us the thumbs up, subscribe to our channel. You know, we're closing in on 50,000 subscribers. That's really unbelievable. I mean, it's just phenomenal. And it's because of you guys being a part of what we've done here to build this brand. So Tony Tsoukalas is our beat writer. You can read his work at BamaInsider.com. Trey Yannity is a rising star in the world of broadcasting and soon to be a full-time member of the team as he works to graduate from Alabama, but a legacy broadcaster. And we do appreciate you guys being here with us tonight. All right, look, let's talk about Alabama. I know, not basketball, not soccer, not anything else. Let's talk about Alabama football. What a year it's been for the greatest coach of all time, Nick Saban. A 13-0 season, his second undefeated season at Alabama. Another national championship for the Crimson Tide. A number one recruiting class with an opportunity to add to that tomorrow. You got the NFL draft picks. You got the NFL coaching edition. This guy, Tony, has it all going his way, and yet if you ran into him in the hall, he'd probably be angry.
Yeah, but that's nothing new, right? On both accounts, we're used to Nick Saban succeeding, and we're used to him not settling, really. And so I think, despite all this success, despite having the number one class probably tomorrow, and then, obviously being the national champions, I expect he's going to have his nose to the grindstone and pushing on for further success. And that's really, Mick, that's what has made him so the best coach ever, is his unrelenting, desire for improvement. And I think that, really makes it special, makes it fun to watch because, you're always getting a better and better product. And so, yeah, Nick Saban has this rolling along, and it's crazy because even, as long as he's been at it at Alabama, they seem to almost be getting better.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. Trey, there was a song that was performed by a man named Al Stewart. It was, and maybe you remember this one, Tony. How old were you in 1975, Trey?
I think I was a good negative 24 at that point.
Okay, so the little bit. What about you, Tony?
I was just a negative 15.
Okay, so it was a long time before you guys were even on this earth, but there was a song that Al Stewart performed. It was called Year of the Cat. It's actually a pretty good song, and you might be able to catch it on your favorite oldie station. 2020, 2021 has been Year of the Saban.
Yeah, I mean, it's not just this year. I think it's been this decade. It's been the decade of the Saban. This guy couldn't, his life couldn't get any better at this point. And people had begun the conversations of, maybe he's on the downside of his career. Maybe things are starting to fall apart after that 2018 title game in San Francisco. And, Alabama was embarrassed that game. But since that day, this program has, pretty much just hit the reset button mentally and continued to dominate the rest of college football. This is what he's about. And it's so funny because the name of this picture you guys see right there, Kyle labeled this one Saban Happy. And he does look happy, but this is probably the happiest he gets right here. And then it's back to business. This is after this past national title. Like you said, Nick Saban with the number one recruiting class in the country yet again. 33 guys have been taken in the first round that have played for Nick Saban. Just an unbelievable career, and it's continuing to get better. We talked about it a couple of weeks ago on one of our shows. When does the window of, potentially him hanging it up come around? I don't think we're even close at this point because he's continued to dominate, and there's nothing in his way.
I felt like a couple of years ago, Tony, Alabama was starting to slide a little bit with their recruiting. They had the number one classes, and then all of a sudden Georgia and Kirby had some number one classes, and Alabama seemed to be a little late to the party with the early signing period, which I got a feeling is just going to be signing period here shortly. But that's all changed. Not only does Alabama have the number one recruiting class, they've got two guys keyed up for tomorrow to join this class. And right now, this is the greatest recruiting class ever in the history of college football as far as our rankings go.
It's certainly special, and look, even Alabama's that down year you're talking about. I think they finished like what, 6th or 7th. You know, the top 10 class. Most teams would kill for that, Mick. You know, so that's the absolute rock bottom for Alabama under Saban. That's pretty dang good. But yeah, you look at this class, and the first thing that stands out to me is the offensive line. The offensive line class coming in. I know that Alabama's already had that settled. But you look at the 2 5-star kids they bring in, and then they have a trio with 4-star kids as well. It's probably the best offensive line class that Alabama, brought in. J.C. Latham, Tommy Brockemeyer, James Brockemeyer, Terrence Ferguson, Jaden Roberts. These guys are really big additions, and it was such a needed. It's such a big need for Alabama after losing 3 starters on the offensive line. Now, do I think they're gonna, have 3 freshman starters next year? Of course not. But I think I wouldn't be surprised if one of these guys from the offensive line comes in and gets a starting position.
Yeah, no doubt about it. Look, the thing about success, and as you guys watch, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe to the Bama Insider YouTube channel for Monday Night Quarterback. Some of you may be listening, by the way. Our podcasts are always uploaded after the shows, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. So I'm thinking like Coke and Budweiser, and I don't know. It's really hard to find a brand that has stayed stable over the course of time, Trey. I mean, like, that's still cool, like you walk at videos, and in the 50s, they're at the malt shop, people drinking Coke. I mean, now, like, you're at the football game and you're drinking Coke, and it's still cool to do it. How is Alabama, in a world of what have you done for me lately, stayed cool with Nick Saban? I mean, like, I compare him to Dabo, who's dancing around on the sideline in the locker room. He's everybody's best friend. And, you look at some of the other coaches at Oklahoma and Ohio State, they go from like big time guys to the next guy, and the next guy's young and he's enthusiastic. I don't know the last word that Ed Orgeron spoke because it's hard for me to understand him without an interpreter. But with that said, he had a great season a couple years ago, won the national championship. But Alabama is that brand, and I don't put LSU on this level or, any of these other teams where it's like no matter what, it's consistent. It's been amazing. How's he done this?
It's truly incredible, Mick. And it's really incredible to think about, him doing this in the state of Alabama. And that's not a knock on the talent that comes out of the state. There's an unbelievable amount of talent come from the state of Alabama. But when you look at it, Texas had that brand. And they're in the state of Texas where they can continue to get the recruits, get the players coming in, and they haven't. You got Southern California in downtown Los Angeles, California. You can get players to come to your school. You have the brand, and they haven't. Alabama, in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, has figured out a way to go to Florida, go to Texas, go to California, go wherever they need to get these players and keep this brand around. And, I think it helps the history factor of Bear Bryant getting this program, the 6 national titles, and, the 17 overall, 18 overall, and, whatever it was before Nick Saban got here, 12, 11. But, it's just kind of, I think the brand is fed into the brand at this point. And it is pretty incredible to think this is not the NFL. This is not a professional league where you can sign guys for however long you want them and pay them whatever kinds of money to be a part of your program. You're having to start over every several seasons. And like you said, Nick Saban's not one of those young, enthusiastic, get in your face, dance around in the locker room, dance around on the field kind of guys. And he's still managed to keep this program, relevant and in pop culture, and kind of like Coca-Cola, everywhere at this point. And I don't think it's going to stop. I wonder, what kind of turn this brand takes when Nick Saban does decide to hang it up. I assume he's going to have a pretty, big hand in the next coach that they hire here. But, will it be a culture shock to the program? A lot of people talk about Dabo Swinney and him potentially coming back to Alabama. That, in my opinion, would be a huge culture shock. I don't know if this program does something like that. What do you guys think?
Look, I think this, and I'll let Tony jump in. If Nick Saban retired and Alabama got Dabo Swinney, then they would be hitting a grand slam. I mean, I remember the last time Alabama had a national championship winning coach, and the administration absolutely destroyed the program with a bad coaching hire. So to think that there would be a possibility of someone else following Nick Saban and what he's been able to accomplish with that type of resume would be amazing. Except, Tony, I don't feel like we're anywhere close to that, because this guy looks like he's 60. He looks younger now than he did 5 years ago, Nick Saban. He actually does crack a smile every once in a while. And I guess the best part about this, in the past, I always felt like Nick Saban was the right offer away from taking another job. Look, he's a hired hand. He's not an Alabama guy. He didn't go to school and play for Bear Bryant. He didn't grow up in the state. He's from West Virginia. Now he's became an Alabama guy, obviously, but you know what? His legacy is success, and it's also a lot of money. I mean, it takes a lot of money to pay him to stay at Alabama. Somebody's going to come along and pay him more money. I thought there was always a possibility with the wrong administration that he would leave, and I think that almost happened before, but the powers that be made whatever they needed to make happen, and the guy stayed. I think he's past that now. I think that this is where he's at. And that benefits Alabama, and it's probably a lot less stress on him because he knows where he's going to be.
Oh, definitely. I think, we're past the point where Nick Saban's going to move on to another coaching venture. If Nick Saban leaves Alabama, it's going to be to retire. It's going to be to hang him up. I think, him and his wife, Terry, are both, kind of entrenched in the community here. They're comfortable. He's got a system that works, that he is obviously just dominated. And I think he just found his home in college and also found his home in Alabama. So, but you're right as well. I don't see him hanging up in the near future. I mean, look, he turned 69 years old. He's not, he's not necessarily young by any means, but I wouldn't put it past him to go another, what do you think, 5 years? I mean, I don't even want to put that kind of limit on him, because you never know. He's in great health and he seems to be really enjoying it. But yeah, I expect this to kind of keep on rolling.
Keeping on the rolling is not only Nick Saban, but his ability to take the cream of the crop, the 5-star player, and the way that we grade prospects, and all of you guys that are watching know this. And if you do know it, give us a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. We're glad to have you here for Monday Night Quarterback on the Bama Insider YouTube channel, or listening to the podcast Bama Insider on Apple and Spotify. But what Nick Saban and his staff and Alabama have been able to do is take 5-star talent, not coddle them, not give them the job, make them earn it, get the best out of them. And then those guys have gone on to a higher percentage of anywhere else in this country. You can put all the other schools in a bucket, and Alabama takes their 5 stars and they turn into NFL millionaires. And it doesn't work like that, Tony, everywhere else. That, to me, is the secret of this recruiting, is that, look, you talk to someone's parent and you go in and say, hey, look, I get it. Kool-Aid's a great football player, right? I mean, he's done it all. He can play basketball. He can play football. He can just, but at Alabama, he's going to work.
Definitely. I mean, look at the draft picks, not just the recruiting classes, but the draft picks as well. That Alabama's, turn these high recruits into draft picks. They develop them. They're all Americans. They're Heisman winners. They look at last year's class, or the senior class. You had a Doak Walker Award winner, a Heisman Award winner, an Outland Trophy winner, a Manning Award winner. It's ridiculous. And so it's not only are they bringing in these high talented kids, they're getting them to perform. They're putting them at the next level, and they're making them a lot of money and really making their futures a lot better.
Yes, Jerry Maguire said, show me the money. Actually, it was Rod Tidwell that told Jerry that, Trey. You remember that movie, right?
Of course.
Okay, they're showing them the money.
Oh, yeah, they are. And Nick Saban's always going to guarantee that for his players. That's the thing. It's kind of like John Calipari in basketball. What advertisement do you need to come play for Nick Saban? You have a really good chance, of proving yourself and then getting to play in the NFL. And for the kids that don't, it's so much more of an experience in a lot of schools around the country, just with the way that the culture is here and the way that he handles this program. And like you mentioned, it's not given. Nothing's given in this program. And I think that really plays an advantage to certain players like Bryce Young, even, or guys that come in here with a lot of hype around them. because sometimes I think that can feed into an ego, can feed into a poor performance because kids just get too psyched up on themselves. And Nick Saban is so good at helping these players understand exactly where they are, talent-wise, strength-wise, everything else-wise, and exactly what they have to do to get to where they want to be, the path to get to maybe a starting position or to get some playing time, whatever the case may be. Nick Saban is just so organized and so in control of this program. When players come here, they know that they're going to become just so much better people, and they are going to have a pretty good chance to go on and play in the next level, and get shown that money.
The other part of this too, guys, before we get into these coaching additions, is that Nick Saban's a bigger celebrity than any player that's played for him or that's going to play in the NFL. That also helps you a lot when you're trying to work with people who are coming in and everyone's told them how great they are forever. Look, you got him telling you something. It makes it a little bit, I say telling you, when you've got him yelling stuff at you, it makes it a little bit easier to, in practice, pay attention to what he's saying, because, it's not like you're going in and people are going to be like, well, who's this guy? Everybody knows who Nick Saban is. And when you're dealing with the cream of the crop, there are people that are pretty confident and think they got it figured out. They run into him and he's got it figured out. And I think it's easy just to sit back and when you get to that point as a player where you go, you know what, I'm just going to listen to what the guy's telling me, do what he says, you're going to be successful. It's the guys that don't do that, that don't last. And most of them go on to other places and we never hear from them again. The other thing that Alabama has been able to do, and as you guys watch, we really appreciate it. Thumbs up, subscribe. This is Bama Insider TV here on YouTube, and it's Monday Night Quarterback. Alabama has had this really Achilles heel. And the Achilles heel, guys, has been the coaches, the assistant coaches. They have absolutely killed Alabama going into the postseason over the years, not just this year, but in the past. And this year didn't matter. But there's been years where the assistant coaches taking other jobs, in my humble opinion, has cost Alabama preparation and success in national championships. I mean, look, they've won, 6 of them. So it's not like they've got a bad track record, but the 2 years that they lost, I feel like there was a correlation between those coaches being distracted and Alabama not being at their best, right? Nick Saban, though, has come up with this game plan now. It seems to be a different approach to replacing these coaches. This year, Steve Sarkisian left for Texas. He took some guys with him. You had one to Marshall, one to Arkansas State, here or there, whatever. And this season, after these guys leave, everyone wondered, what is Alabama going to do? He goes out and pulls off something that may never happen again in the history of college football. Let me repeat myself. It may never happen again in college football that 2 NFL head coaches get fired from their jobs in the NFL and take assistant coaching jobs on the same side of the football the same year, Tony. But that's what Alabama did.
It's absolutely incredible, that a college. It just shows how great the staff are, how great it is to work under Nick Saban and the opportunities that can stem from that. And I think that's why you see 2 former NFL coaches come to Alabama to take on, non-head coaching roles at the college level. It's the opportunity to work with the best coach in the history of football, possibly, at least on the college side of the ball. And I think that's just a testament to what Nick Saban builds, and just how much it benefits you to work from him. And from Alabama's standpoint, they're getting a lot of experience that they can pass down to their players. I mean, they've got if you count Nick Saban, really, you've got 3 former head NFL coaches on your staff, and that's a lot. And I think as a recruit, you sell that experience, and also that pipeline to the NFL as well, because you look, these people have connections to the NFL. They know what it takes to play on an NFL roster, and I think Alabama is going to kind of maybe take some of that NFL mentality, and they're already kind of take a lot of that professional mentality with them at the college level. I think you're just going to continue to see that, over at least over the next season and beyond.
And reports now that Shaheem Carter may join Alabama staff, not a former head coach, but one of our favorite former Alabama players as Nick Saban continues to.
Yeah, and I just actually, sorry, I was a little bit distracted, but I was able to confirm that just now. So, yeah, he's going to be working as a graduate assistant at Alabama. That's another thing too. You're bringing back former players that want to get that opportunity as a coach, and that's another thing Nick Saban's really good at is giving people opportunities. And so I look forward. Shaheem Carter, one of the smartest players at Alabama when he was here. I think it's going to be really interesting to see him on the coaching side of the ball, just because, he's such an intellectual player, knows the defense. When he was at Alabama, he knew the defense probably better than any player on the field. So it'd be really interesting to get, that insight. I'm sure he'll end up helping Nick Saban, but also learning a ton from Nick Saban as well.
He'll be part of that coaching tree as a head coach one day down the road, right? As Nick Saban's built out so many successful and some unsuccessful head coaches, but every year, 2, 3, 4 games Alabama plays against a former Nick Saban assistant. Great to have all you guys with us on Bama Insider and our YouTube channel or our podcast. This is Monday Night Quarterback with Tony Tsoukalos and Trey Hannity. I'm Mick Gillespie. All right, guys, we talked about the Alabama players in the past that have cashed in $1 million contracts after performing, 5-star recruits coming in and doing their thing. And we take a look at the Senior Bowl. Mac Jones had an impressive Senior Bowl. I've heard some of these draft experts saying, Trey, that maybe Mac Jones could be a top 10 pick right now. We're expecting that Devontae Smith will be the first receiver taken. He may be a top 5 pick when it's all said and done, maybe even in the top 3. I've even heard some people say that he should be the first pick. So the Senior Bowl was in Mobile. Some Alabama players practiced, not all of them played, but it was still an opportunity to get in front of scouts.
Yeah, and the practice is equally as important as the games for a guy like Mac Jones, really specifically here. And you see him holding up the number 2 right there. Maybe he'd like to be taking number 2. I don't think that's as high as he's going to go, maybe. But it will be in that first round, in my opinion. You saw Louis Riddick talk about it this week. Mac Jones probably had the best day out of everybody there, the best day he could have had. And you guys can find more. Tony had a great article up this week on it, kind of breaking down Mac Jones' draft stock and where he could potentially go. But we hear more and more buzz about Mac Jones to New England. I love it. I think it would be perfect for that system up there. You stick Mac Jones with Bill Belichick. A guy goes from Nick Saban to Bill Belichick. I think he's going to be a pretty talented football mind. And he's worked to get this opportunity to be taken in the first round. I think he's ready to prove it to everybody. That's kind of been his MO this year. Let me prove it to everybody. He's had to have the chip on his shoulder. He wasn't even, necessarily supposed to be the starter at the beginning of this season or remain the starter as the season went on. And he was a Heisman finalist and, showed everybody up here at the Reese's Bowl. So the sky is the limit for Mac Jones. For Najee Harris, I think we're saying the same. Devontae Smith as well. I think Devontae Smith is going to be a top 3 pick in this draft. I think Harris is, adds so much value just because when you're drafting running backs, you want them to be ready to play right away. You see guys like Clyde Edwards-Helaire as a prime example. This past season, Kansas City took him. He touched snap number 1 of their season. So, I think Najee Harris is going to kind of play that same role, maybe not as hands-on, depending on where he's drafted. But, teams are going to look to grab him high because there's so much value in getting an NFL-ready running back like Najee Harris.
I was really surprised that we were going to be able to keep Tony after all the money he made on Peter Pan buying GameStop this week. Tony, we do appreciate you sticking around with that bundle of loot that you were able to make before.
I wish.
But
I wish.
But let's be serious. That whose stock went up like GameStop from Alabama at the Senior Bowl this year?
Well,
Anybody?
It's Mac Jones, and today, former Jets GM Ryan Tannenbaum. I'm sorry, Mike Tannenbaum. He said that he'd be surprised if Mac Jones went past number 8 to the Panthers. He'd be surprised if he got outside of the top 10. So that's crazy. I mean, we're talking about not only is Mac Jones a top our first round pick, he could be a top 8, top 10 pick. I mean, his stock has just skyrocketed. I think I put the Panthers in my. I'm not even sure if I put them in my landing place for Jones. I mean, I think I did. That was that was the highest I had him going. But it's absolutely crazy to see his stock soar, not only from the Senior Bowl, but from this time last year. If I would have told you that he would have been a top 8 pick, I think you would have asked me if I was doing all right, if I was all up there in the head. But he's proven it, and he's I think he's going to. I wouldn't be surprised. I think 8 might be a little high, but I wouldn't be surprised if he does land at 8 because every opportunity he's had a chance to prove himself, he's done it. He can make any throw. He's cool under pressure. He makes good decisions. He has a good deep ball. Other than being a dual threat quarterback, which you've seen teams win. I mean, look, there's a team called the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. They're in the Super Bowl right now. They don't have a dual threat quarterback. You've seen teams win without them. Alabama obviously won without them last year as well. But other than that, I think he's got everything you'd want in the quarterback.
Well, and think about him going to the Panthers and playing for Joe Brady, the LSU offensive genius that turned the Tigers into one of the best teams that's ever played college football. And I'm sure we'll eventually be back one day as a head coach, probably at LSU if they're smart. The sooner they get him back, the better off they'd be. But you know what? It would be cool to see Mac Jones play for Joe Brady if he did stay in the in the top 8.
It could be a really fun fit. And I mean, you saw what he did with Joe Burrow. And I think there's a lot of places Mac could fit in. I like the Panthers. I think we're all kind of rooting for Mac to get picked as high as he can. But if he was to go to like a Steelers too, I think that's a good pick, a good fit for him. I think the Patriots, that's a team, that's an offense that's used to building its team around a non-mobile quarterback. So they made that certainly work in the past. They don't have a lot of weapons now, but they would have a lot of cap space to build some offense around Mac Jones. So I think the Patriots would be a decent fit depending on what they were able to build around Mac Jones. I mean, obviously, if you plugged him into that offense that the Patriots had last year, I think it could be, not the best place to start your career, but the general thought is they'd add to that offense. And so I like him working with McDaniels and Belichick. But there's a few places that I could see Mac Jones fitting in because I think he's a great quarterback. I think he's definitely a guy that I would invest in if my team was drafting a quarterback. So he's going to land somewhere, and I believe he's going to make someone really happy.
Great to have all of you with us on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. It's Monday Night Quarterback. Thumbs up and subscribe. We got shows scheduled all week, including tomorrow. I saw there were a few people wondering where Kyle is tonight. Well, Kyle will be back tomorrow night, 6 o'clock with Andrew Bone, and you can watch that right here. And then Wednesday, we'll have coverage of the few players that we expect to sign with Alabama. I'll eventually be back on. I think it's you and I, Tony, right, on Wednesday, and then Kyle on Thursday, and then Trey, actually Bone on Thursday, and Trey's on Friday. So we try to give you guys a plethora of different hosts, and we all know Kyle's the best though from the comment section. We're just this is our little Monday night show that we're trying to get the week set up, and Kyle will be back tomorrow with Bone, and they'll really be a show that'll be a lot of fun to check out because I'm just curious to know going into Wednesday how Bone feels about the potential of Kamar Wheaton. I mean, I honestly, and maybe I'm crazy, but with all those coaches that were involved in his recruitment nearby in Texas, there's no loyalty to Alabama anymore for Sark and his boys. So now just keep that in mind. If we learned anything from Georgia, Kirby Smart ain't Alabama's defensive coordinator anymore. Steve Sarkisian isn't Alabama's offensive coordinator anymore. So it'd be interesting to see how that turns out, but we're not expecting anything to change on that front. But we'll be keeping an eye on that. With that said, guys, and I'm going to start with you, Trey, biggest question mark going into spring football. We've talked about all these different players that have left. We don't have the 4 horsemen at the receiver spots anymore. We don't have Tua. We don't have Mac. We don't have Jalen. They're all gone. It's going to be a new quarterback. This offense is going to be a lot different, but maybe it's defense. What do you think the biggest question mark is going into spring football?
You talk about the receiver depth, obviously losing, probably the most explosive player in the country in Jalen Waddle and probably the best receiver in the country in Devontae Smith. But this team kind of reminds me of the 2017 Alabama Crimson Tide. That was the year that Jerry Jeudy was a freshman, Henry Ruggs was a freshman, Smith was a freshman as well. Young quarterback. It was still Jalen Hurts' team for most of that season, obviously. Tua only took over for pretty much one half of football that year. But this setup, this offseason kind of feels the same as that one did. The biggest question mark, I would say, for me personally, is going to be this running back room. And I don't even think it's, maybe a question mark because I'm worried about it. It's kind of like for my fantasy football fans out there, you look every week at certain players and they have a boom potential and a bust potential. And, the boom potential is how well they can do. What's the ceiling? And the bust is obviously, what's the worst thing that can happen? And I think that the boom potential in this group is huge. You have a veteran running back coming back to join some youth. And, you got a guy like Jace McClellan coming onto the scene. But I would say the question mark is, will Brian Robinson be able to provide enough with the, his veteran mentorship? Will Trey Sanders be able to stay healthy? Will he be healthy? Will Jace McClellan be able to provide enough? Will Kamar Wheaton come in and do some damage? That's kind of the question mark for me. Not as, will they succeed or fail? Because they do have the chance to fail, but I think how much will they succeed? How much will they provide to this team? Because obviously this past season, the running back room was unbelievable. I was talking to my roommate right before I came over here, trying to, kind of piece some thoughts together at the end of preparation for this one. And he said the offensive line, he's a little bit worried about that. What's your guys' thoughts on this offensive line? I didn't, have too many answers for him. Obviously you have two unbelievable recruits coming to join this group, but you're losing Landon Dickerson and some other big names here. How do you guys think they respond?
Yeah, I'll jump in on that because I know you brought up the 2017 team. I actually see this as the 2016 team, the year before, the one that lost last second to Clemson. And the reason why is because I know that was a great defense, and this could be a really great defense, but you have a team led by its defense, a young mobile quarterback, one real go-to receiver. We'll see how the rest of the receivers gel around John Mechie. And then, but the thing I think this team needs, like you said, Trey, is that offensive line. And look, they're losing three really stud guys. You're losing a left tackle in Alex Leatherwood, a center in Landon Dickerson, both those guys team captains. And then Deontay Brown was a mauler too at the guard position. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they kind of piece this together. I lean towards not having two freshmen in the offensive line. Certainly both J.C. Latham and Tommy Brockmeyer, they're elite prospects, and they could both start as freshmen. I just think you want to kind of avoid that if possible. I came out with a projected offensive depth chart today on the site. I had Alex Leatherwood switch to the left side where he would protect Bryce Young's blind spot. I also had Emil Ekiyor follow him over to the left side of the line. Same thought process. I have Chris Owens kind of putting that stability at the center position, and I really think that I've stressed it every single time, but you really need your team captain, your kind of veteran guy at center, and that at right guard, I actually have I have Tommy Brown, a guy that kind of came in at times at guard. He was recruited as a tackle, but he's a guy that I think kind of got forgotten a little bit, but a really big guy that I think could provide a push, in the running game and kind of fill that role left behind by Deontay Brown. And then at that right tackle position is where I think we're going to see one of these freshmen pop up. And I have J.C. Latham, but it could easily be Tommy Brockmeyer at that spot as well. But I think that's where that right tackle spot is where I'm circling in terms of just, I want to see if one of these 5-star freshmen or shoot, if it's, Terrence Ferguson, why not him either, but like if one of these guys can fill that right tackle spot, I think Alabama will be humming right along on offense again.
Yeah, I look for some surprises on the offensive line. I really don't feel like there's that many jobs that are cemented, but you make great points there because with the guys that you bring back this year, you can really kind of put together some experience. And I know that has to be the fear for this team. As far as what's the biggest hurdle that they're going to have coming into this spring. But I feel like it's quarterback. And I think that the longer that Bryce Young doesn't take the job and make it his, the tougher it's going to be on this entire team, because Nick Saban is going to try to do everything he can to keep a Bryce Young. He doesn't want to be in that same situation that Georgia fell in with Justin Fields, where he just wasn't ready to be the starting quarterback, and then he transfers, and then you have a chance to win a championship, but you don't have a quarterback, But then again, if Paul Tyson goes in there and beats him for the job, he's going to get the job. Nick Saban's not going to give it to anybody. You're going to have to earn it. So it's going to be interesting to see during the spring game how those guys look. And then, if someone establishes themselves as the starting quarterback, and the last thing you want is some kind of quarterback controversy. And I think that's a position right now where Alabama really is honestly weak. I mean, until someone establishes that they're the starting quarterback, then that to me seems to be the biggest concern. And that's what I'm looking forward to watching going into spring football. The good thing is you got two guys who come in highly touted. I've seen Bryce Young's high school tapes. He's got it all. It's just a matter of going out there and performing and taking the job. And look, I've heard from multiple sources that Paul Tyson's really good and that people ought to keep an eye on him too. So I'm curious to see how this is all going to play out. And that's my biggest question mark going into spring football. Well, as we talk Alabama football, we appreciate all of you that are joining us tonight here on the Bama Insider YouTube channel. We're Alabama rivals, and we appreciate all of you. Whether you're an Alabama fan and you're at home yelling Roll Tide, or you're just a college football fan hanging out, comment in the message board and like our page, subscribe. And also, if you want to get a question in, we appreciate the super chats as well. He's Tony Tsoukalas and Trey Yanity. I'm Mick Gillespie. Guys, as we look at the schedule coming up, I've talked to some people who feel like it's a weak schedule. I am on the other end of this. I think this is a really tough schedule. I think Miami's going to be tough for Alabama, and Atlanta playing at Florida is going to be tough. Ole Miss with better players. Lane Kiffin, he may spend the entire offseason trying to beat Alabama because he got so close last year, right? And then you got to play LSU. I'm glad that one's in Tuscaloosa. And then you got to go down to Auburn. That's never easy, especially with this young team. So I'm saying this is a tough schedule, but the question is, what do you think the biggest challenge is going to be on Alabama's schedule? And I think that is going to be playing at Florida. I think it's going to be a tough game. I think playing at Florida is going to be tough. They lost a lot of players, but it's early enough where this Alabama team is going to be tested, Tony.
Yeah, that's a tough one, Mick. Especially when it's early in the season. I'd like to see the offense, be from an Alabama perspective. If the offense is not moving along there, then that could be a difficult trip. But the game that kind of draws my attention when I look at it is that Ole Miss game. You mentioned Lane Kiffin. That game comes right before a trip to Texas A&M. Which that Texas A&M trip also kind of stands out. And I talked about it last week when it came out, but that's such a trap game. And Ole Miss is the kind of team that can sneak up on you. Like you said, Lane Kiffin can put together an offense that might be able to test this defense. I know we just talked about how great this Alabama defense is, and I'm going to have a depth chart tomorrow that will kind of show you all of what Alabama has coming back. But look, I think that this Ole Miss team can be a real thorn in the side for Alabama. And it's one of these teams that they have to take seriously. And that really, that's again this year. And I wouldn't be surprised if that becomes a trickier game than it should be for Alabama. So that's the game that stands out to me. Maybe not so much from a talent perspective, but just like where it falls in the schedule. You look at what Lane Kiffin can do. That's a difficult one for me, but also like you said, that Florida game that could also be tough. The trip to Texas A&M can be tough. Look, Auburn on the road, is always tough. So there's a few that stand out, but I think look, Alabama's going to be favored in each of these games. It's just a matter of if they're able to bring it and stay focused. Because if if Alabama plays to its best potential in each of these games, I really think they should go undefeated again. It's just, granted, that doesn't always happen. And look, that's why last season was such a rarity and such an accomplishment to go undefeated. It's hard to do. But I think Alabama still enters every game as a favorite.
What about you, Trey?
Yeah, I'm going to be honest, guys. I think this is an incredibly easy schedule. I really don't think there's too many tests. Florida, isn't returning Mr. Pitts or Kadarius Toney or Kyle Trask or really any of their weapons. Big time weapons on offense, the guys that we were all getting burned by in that SEC title game. You got to go to Texas A&M. I think that's really the one you highlight and say this game, it's probably your hardest game of the season. That's an unbelievable atmosphere. We'll see what the capacity looks like. But that's a really good team too. I think it comes down to, what does Alabama look like? We still have so many question marks like we just talked about. Is Bryce Young going to come out and look great? Is this O-line going to be good enough? Is Pete Golding going to figure it out on defense, for 12 games this year? So I think it's more about Alabama than even the schedule. I don't think this schedule, is super hard. And JG makes a good point. Look at the schedule compared to Clemson. Yeah, this is a tough schedule if you're putting them up against each other. Of course, this has SEC schools on it now. And Clemson does play Georgia week 1. That's a challenge. Okay. They got their one. I think this Bama schedule is relatively simple for Bama. It's just whether they can come out and perform, check all the boxes that we're a little bit worried about. If they do that, I don't think they're going to have a problem. This schedule really isn't too difficult. Get ready for the SEC title if you get a chance to play in that, and get ready for the playoff, because I think they're going to be headed right back to it.
And I totally disagree. And I hope I'm wrong. Tony, you go over and it's like, I'm not even thinking about Texas A&M. They got to play at Miami. They got to play at Florida. They got to play at Texas A&M. They got to play at Auburn. Young teams, and this is going to be a experienced group on defense, but the way that football is won right now isn't on defense anymore. It's on offense. And so Alabama's going to have to figure out how to block. They're going to have to figure out who's going to touch the ball. All the people that touch the ball are gone. Look, you don't have Najee coming back. You don't have Smitty coming back. There's no Waddle coming back. You got Menchie and you got Bolden. And to me, those guys weren't even on the same plane as the 4 receivers that were starting 2 years ago, right? And then you got a quarterback that every time he was in the game last year, he looked like he was nervous. He didn't know where to throw the football. He held on to it too long. This offense that was prolific when he was in the game stunk. So, it's hard for me to look at it and go, well, Alabama's going to go in there and roll these guys because they're Alabama. I look at it like Bama's coming this way and they're coming this way. And I know, like Florida, you're right. Florida lost a lot of players too. But, it's going to be, I don't know, man. I just don't feel like this schedule is that easy. Maybe I'm just not seeing something.
Well, you're right.
Very chicken little approach to it, if you look at it, Mick, because it's not like Alabama's devoid of stars. Look, Brian Robinson's a solid back, but even if you're not a believer in Brian Robinson, Trey Sanders could come back off his injury. Even if you're not a believer in that, you've got Jason McClellan, you've got your Roydell Williams, you've got possibly, we'll find out tomorrow, but could be the top running back in the nation, and Kamar Wheaton. So this running back room, you also have Keelan Robinson. I remember what he did before opting out last season. So you've got a really deep running back room. You got wide receivers. John Mechie, I don't think you're giving him enough credit, because I think he's really good. I think, he could be like a Calvin Ridley type player by the time he leaves. I don't think that's too far in praise. I think he's a really talented receiver, and he proved that last year. You've got a tight end now that's more dynamic, and we got to see that last season in Jaleel Billingsley. The offensive line needs to gel, and that's a huge thing. And losing 3 starters from there, that's the biggest question mark for me. But when you look at Bryce Young, look, you're judging off of 22 passes. 2 of them were dropped. So I think, 13 of 22 probably doesn't look as great, but this 15 of 22 looks a lot better, especially if you add the touchdown that was dropped by Slade Bolden. We've seen him make plays. The offense was bad because basically his job was to hand the ball off for two plays and then throw on a 3rd and long. And, as a kid that's looking to make plays, I think he's probably tried to force a few things, but it's hard for any quarterback to to succeed on third and 8 with the second stringers in.
All right, but there's another thing too. All the stuff that I talked about, and guess what? Just about the entire offensive coaching staff's gone.
Yeah, but you're bringing in two guys from the National Football League here who were both head coaches this past season. So, they're losing a lot. And, I think question mark, those two words we're going to keep going back to until we get, game number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever under our belts and really figure out what we got. Because there is some question marks. And I don't want to take away from it. Don't want to be that guy. Somebody's going to screen record this, pull it up when we, drop the opener, drop whatever. And, but at the end of the day, I think this team and this schedule is going to be like every other season for Alabama. You're going to be projected to win most games. You're going to be projected to, compete, if nothing else, in the games that are going to be harder. And, Alabama is losing, like Poetic Injustice said, Najee Harris, Mac Jones, Jalen Waddle, Devontae Smith. Yeah, but they also have the number 1 class in the country. They're bringing in the top 2 offensive line recruits. They're bringing in an unbelievable class of receivers. I can't stress that enough. A.G. Hall, Christian Leary, some of these kids coming to play receiver. It's unbelievable. From the tapes that we've seen. But, at the same time, they are losing a lot. So this schedule could go one way or the other. In my opinion, I just don't see too many games, outside of Texas A&M, maybe that Ole Miss game, maybe Auburn on the road, that, really present that much of a challenge. I think it's going to be more competitive than last year. I don't think Alabama is going to come out and put up the amount of points right out of the gate like they did every single game. But on the other side of that coin, I feel like Alabama's defense is going to be a lot better than it was last year in some areas. So, we'll see. But get in the comments. Let us know what you think about this. Is it an easy schedule, or is this one going to be tough?
You talk about the comments, and then I got to thank Jackie. She's like, hey, look, I totally agree with Mick. But my favorite one is this one right here. McTonic, he says, Mick, you are high, and you need another Yingling. The schedule's easy. Hey, I'll take it
on the national championship high. So I think that's what he's – yeah.
Yeah, national championship high. Look, I was just looking at the word Yingling. I'm definitely no. I love these the comments, man. You guys crack me up, and it's so great to have you as part of our audience and hanging out with us tonight. Thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, make comments, be part of this, and we can't tell you how much our work pays off for us when you guys are part of this audience and hanging out with us. Don't forget tomorrow night, 6:00. It'll be Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone. They'll get you set up for Wednesday and the National Signing Day. Not the early period, but the final period. Kamar Wheaton is expected to sign with Alabama, but they'll have all the latest news on that. All right, guys, look, before we get out of here, this is Monday Night Quarterback, right? But we're going to talk Monday Night Basketball, at least for this last segment. Like, I'm trying to figure out this basketball team. I know they're good. Look, I appreciate the fact that when they hit threes, they're tough to beat. But in the non-conference schedule, they have struggled, and they had a chance at Oklahoma, tough place, didn't shoot the ball well, and they lost. I never felt like they were going to win the game. I watched it. I was into it. There were a few times where they got close, but I just never felt like they were going to be able to get over the hump. They're still 9-0 in SEC play. Unfortunately, they haven't won an SEC championship since 2002, even with a 3+ game lead for the conference. Still have a long way to go there. It's been a while since they've made a run in the tournament. They haven't been in the tournament recently. So it's good to know that there's a lot of things going on. But I was talking to Tony off the air, and I'm going to kind of throw you into this too, Trey. I just don't think that the SEC is very good at basketball. I look at Tennessee, and they can play. I like Missouri. Kentucky's not good this year. They got some talent. And Alabama's good, but I feel like people aren't going to like this. I feel like the SEC's as bad as it ever has been this year. Tell me why I'm wrong and make me feel better about this Alabama opportunity where they were a top 10 team last week.
It's not a great SEC. I'm not going to lie to you and say it's a great year for the SEC, but I mean, there's some talent on these rosters, and it's still tough games to win. And Alabama still hasn't lost in conference. And yeah, they lost to Oklahoma, but they lost on the road. Alabama's already banged up, and they lost to an Oklahoma team that, after they beat Alabama, recorded their third straight win over a top 10 team, is an Oklahoma team that the AP now ranks at number 9. So you lost to the number 9 team on the road. I mean, That's
They
tough.
are hot. Look, and they are hot too. I mean, they just rolled through 3 ranked teams, Kansas, Texas, and Alabama. I mean, you got to give them credit. Alabama might have played the hottest team in the country.
And Alabama played awful for stretches of that game, and they lost by 5 points, and they could have won. And look, Alabama's banged up. I know Oklahoma was missing stars, and so you think, oh well, Alabama couldn't even beat an Oklahoma team without 2 of their starters. Well, does Alabama really have? Alabama's missing a starter, and then when you look at the way Herb Jones was playing in that game, he's not 100%. So you don't have Jordan Bruner, one of your best defensive players. Your best defensive player is Herbert Jones, who I'm not one of these people that likes to blame the referees, and I'm not even going that route. But he was getting some calls against him that didn't really go his way. He's having to battle with that, and his hip injury, and he just wasn't there. So you didn't have a full Herbert Jones. You've got guys like James Rojas that are banged up. Alex Reese played really well, but he came into the game banged up. And it's an Alabama team that was kind of like limping a bit against a red hot Oklahoma team. Granted, a shorthanded red hot Oklahoma team, but still a red hot Oklahoma team. So I don't think there's any really, shame in losing that game. Of course, Alabama would like to win. It would have really helped their resume. But I think if they come back, and I think this is a big test, on Wednesday night against LSU, if they're able to complete that sweep, I think that could be huge for Alabama and kind of right the ship. And, then you'd be 10-0 in SEC play. I think you got that momentum right back. So I think I think Wednesday could be a really big swing game, but I don't think it's time to panic yet.
Yeah.
Right?
I'm with you, Tony. And, probably the thing I love most about this show, other than getting to talk with you guys about all kinds of stuff, is just getting in the comments and seeing what people have to say. NFC Boys saying I look like the actor from the movie The Pianist. I haven't seen it.
I laughed at that one. Look,
Adrian Brody, he kind of does.
I didn't want to crack up, but I saw that, and
I like
Can we get a picture of Adrian Brody on the screen, please?
Yeah, let's see if we can get one up here. But, to talk about basketball, some other comments. JL getting here. I love the energy tonight, man. And you're spot on. This team was turning over the basketball like nobody's business to start that game. And they went down 11-2 and closed out the half on a poor run as well. When you do that, let me see if I can get this spelling right. Adrian Brody. Yeah, okay, here we go.
I can kind of see it. You got to look through some of the images. We'll let the comment section decide. You can pick your favorite image, Trey.
I feel like it looks like a combination of me and Mick almost, even.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah.
Hold on. Let me download this real quick here.
I want to stay composed, but when people make comments like that, it's really hard not to just crack up.
All right, here we go. Here comes Adrian Brody to the screen.
Let's see him.
There he is.
I like it. I see it. It's a grown up. That's what you're gonna look like at age 35 to 40.
I like it. Thank you, NFC boys. I appreciate the compliment.
Oh my God.
Yeah. No, but thanks for getting in, guys, and giving us the conversations and everything else in these comments. But everybody's talking about basketball right now, and I don't think there's too much reason to be worried right now. Like you guys are talking about, Oklahoma is the hottest team in the country. Far and away. They have 3 top 15 wins in 1 week. And they beat Alabama missing 2 guys. And Nate Oates said it best in his post-game press conference. Sometimes missing guys like that kind of fuels your team, kind of helps you rally. And I think that's just what they did on Saturday. They beat Alabama in a close game. Alabama looked sloppy at times. They didn't shoot the 3 ball as well as they have. But you got to keep in mind, this Alabama team is going to look so much different when Jordan Bruner returns at some point this month, once they get their bigs back, because sometimes they just struggle. And one thing I noticed on Saturday especially, they really struggled on the offensive glass. If you're giving the other team, 4, 5, 6 opportunities every time they go down, they're probably going to make one. And that was the case on Saturday. Tough loss, but, they'll move on. Adrian Brody, I guess, is going to be my long-lost brother or something like that.
It's just your future self, Trey.
Yeah, that's it.
That's what you're turning into, man.
Yeah. Guys, I feel like there's a double standard here that you're giving basketball that you wouldn't give football. It's like, well, Oklahoma had a bunch of their players, some of their players out. I say a bunch. I mean, you're down 2 guys. I mean, that's, for a roster that has 12 to 14 players. I mean, that's a lot a lot of players, and some of their best guys weren't there. Alabama's got some guys banged up. But would you be saying the same thing if this was a football game and Alabama lost to LSU or Auburn? Would you be saying, well, you know what? I mean, they were banged up. I just never hear that when it comes to football. But I think with basketball and some of the other sports, there's definitely a different. We have different standards, right?
Well, yeah, because it's a different sport. I mean, like, look, I think in basketball, you can't go undefeated. I mean, so you're going to drop a game. So if you are going to drop a game, which is
Bobby Knight that.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. I mean, like, it's look, there's not an undefeated team in the top 10. Or wait, no, well, Gonzaga is, but you get what I'm saying. Like, it's really hard to go undefeated in basketball. So you're going to drop some of these games, and it's tough. And dropping a game on the road at Oklahoma when things aren't going your way is not the end of the world.
Well, I think the good thing, though, is that this team is on a roll. I mean, look, Alabama's still a great team. I mean, in the bigger scheme of things, I mean, they're the best in the SEC, and they still have a ton to play for. And maybe you lose a game like this, and it's better. I mean, we post the Nate Oates press conferences on this site that you're watching right now, Bama Insider YouTube. And, one of the things he talked about was, I've been telling these guys, we haven't played well. We've won, but we haven't played well. And there is something to that. Nick Saban talks about dealing with success all the time. And that's the point I'm making to you guys, is that Alabama could win. And if they don't win the way that Nick Saban wants them to win, doing the little things right, forget about what the score is. He's not going to be happy, right? But with basketball, we're like, well, everybody's hurt, and we'll just that's okay. It's just I guess it is a different sport. But the Nate Oates is trying to establish that the same mentality that he looks and sees that Nick Saban has. I think Nate Oates is a really good coach.
He is. I mean, I think Alabama's hire 2 seasons ago was the best hire they could have made. A++ hire. There were some other guys, maybe Mike Young at Wofford, who had just taken them, relatively deep in the tournament. But Nate Oates at Buffalo was having this kind of success. The sky's the limit in the SEC, and we're already seeing it in season number 2. It starts with recruiting, and he inherited John Petty. He inherited Herb Jones, some of these guys. But, just the classes alone that we're seeing. J.D. Davidson coming in a 5-star. This past year, Joshua Primo and him getting Keon Ambrose and Keon Ellis and some of his other buddies and just some of the places they're going to recruit and getting these kids. It's awesome to see. And I think it's setting up this program for, a potential dynasty, because even in years, you look like this year, Kentucky still has a really good team, and Alabama just swept them. Obviously, they're not what they were, but, if Alabama continue to recruit like this, they're going to be rolling for quite some time. Poetic Injustice, saying anything basketball does is house money. I like that. Maybe we'll throw a pizza party. One more than 8 games, though. We'll see. But I do think this team has so much more potential than that even. I think they're going to win the SEC. I think they're going to end up somewhere in that 2 to 5 seeding range. And, I think the sky's the limit from there. This team has the potential to beat anybody on any given night. But at the same time, if they rebound like they have in certain games, if they're cold, they could lose to anybody on any given night.
Right. All right, guys, look, that just about wraps up Monday Night Quarterback. But before we go anywhere, I want to know your Super Bowl prediction, where you're going to watch the Super Bowl. Kansas City with Patrick Mahomes against Tampa Bay with Tom Brady. This could be one of the greatest Super Bowls. At least on paper, it's the best matchup I can remember in the Super Bowl. I mean, there's so many different areas to go and look at this thing. And then I want to know what you are working on this week and where we can, catch your work at. And I'll go with you first, Tony.
First of all, thanks, Mikonic, for the super chat before we get started. Really appreciate that. Yeah, it's a lose-lose situation for me, Mick. I hate it. This is like the worst Super Bowl in the world. I said it before on the show. I think my dad's from New England, big time Patriots fan. So I either have to watch Brady win a championship without the Patriots, or my father-in-law is a huge Chiefs fan, and I'm gonna have to hear from him if they win on them winning back-to-back Super Bowls. So I just really don't want this Super Bowl to even happen. Can we just shut it down and it just doesn't exist? I guess I'm going for the Chiefs. I'm not one of these Patriots fans that likes to root for the ex-girlfriend. So I'm going for the Chiefs. I think they're gonna win. I couldn't give you a score, but I'll say Chiefs by 10.
Okay. And then what are you working on for Bama Insider?
Yeah, so today we dropped the offensive depth chart, or the offensive side of our projected depth chart. Tomorrow, or Tuesday, we are dropping the defensive side of it. So make sure to check that out. We've basically we've kind of broken down the depth chart, but I'll do it in full and kind of give an outlook at each position group, and so you can get a better look at what maybe Alabama has heading into spring camp, which is going to be in about a month and a half.
All right, now your turn.
Yeah, this Super Bowl is, it's just so cool because there's so many different storylines, and I think either way, if the Bucs had won or lost that game to Aaron Rodgers and the Packers, this was going to be an unbelievable matchup. But we get Tom Brady against a potential future GOAT in Patrick Mahomes. This game could be the passing of the torch, and I think that's a really cool storyline. But at the same time, this one could really solidify the GOAT of all GOATs if it's not already, a fact that Tom Brady is the greatest quarterback to ever play this game. But, prediction-wise, I just don't see Kansas City losing this game. And they really did look weird at times this season. It was not the same run that they made this past year on their, quest to the Super Bowl. This season was different for KC, but I think they come out and they roll in this one. I really had, some doubts coming into the playoffs, and they've played pretty well throughout the playoffs. Not exceptional, up until that Bills game. I really think they came out and proved that they can win this Super Bowl, and I think they will. But Tom Brady, anything's possible. This dude doesn't lose a lot of big games, so we'll see what happens. But, I think it's just going to be a great one. I like it. Old GOAT versus baby GOAT. Good stuff, Harold.
So let me ask you this. Hold on, Tony. So you're watching the Super Bowl with your family is basically what you're saying.
I'm watching it with my wife, and I'm probably going to have a friend or so over.
So nothing big.
I'll have Kleenex on hand for the tears that will be shed.
Okay. You're in a tough spot. All right, Trey, finish up. Where are you going to watch the Super Bowl? And what do you got? What are you working on?
I honestly, my favorite thing during the Super Bowl is just bouncing around, trying to go to as many different, watch parties as I can, just seeing people, because usually there's at least 2 or 3 people that are rooting for one of the teams and they're super invested. So it's just fun to kind of, vibe with those people and get experience that with them. I'll probably start at my apartment and, make my way around. As far as Bama Insider goes this week, it's, another loaded week. We got Luke Ratliff, Fluffopotamus, the captain of the Crimson Chaos, the guy at the front of that student section there. At the Alabama basketball game. It's really a figure. I love this guy to death. He's coming on our show on Friday, talk about some things. We had a basketball video come out today, excuse me. Just kind of detailing the rankings update, breaking down the rest of the season, what to look for. We'll have some other videos coming out this week as well. Just kind of based off of what happens. Hopefully we're talking about Kamar Wheaton coming to Bama. It looks like he will. And, some other great things. What do you got going on this week, Mick?
Well, I got to tell you, Facebook puts on every once in a while, they'll have like updates and stuff on there. And then I saw one from the Ravens where they said 20 years ago, they beat the Giants in the Super Bowl. And why that's significant is that as a student at Alabama, and this is public knowledge, I threw the biggest Super Bowl party in the history of the University of Alabama. So, I mean, for that football game, I had TVs all over the house, which, by the way, was torn down. It's where where that Midtown Village is now. There's a big house back there. And look, I would have invited, you guys would have been invited, Jay from the chat, the guy that asked me if I told me I needed more Yinglings, everybody come to the house party. It was unbelievable. There were, hundreds of people that came. And I just remember we had kegs and we had TVs on the porch and we had them in all the different rooms. And people still come up to me and say, dude, that party was insane. With that said, I don't really have a party to go to this year, so I'm trying to find one to go watch this because I think this is going to be one of the greatest Super Bowls ever. I love everything about this matchup. First off, Kansas City, Patrick Mahomes. I had Patrick Mahomes, took him in fantasy football before he was even famous, before he really busted out. And my buddy Terrence helps me put together my fantasy football team, right? He's like my general manager. And he's like, hey, we're going to take this guy. I took him in the 14th round. And it just turns out, that was 3 years ago. he's awesome. I mean, like, he's great. I didn't even realize at the time that his dad pitched for the Cubs. Like, I forgot all about that, and honestly didn't even know. And so I love watching him. I met Travis Kelce at spring training, hung out with him and Rick Sutcliffe last year before COVID. It was like the night before I got sent home. So I like the Chiefs. I like their uniforms. I like Kansas City. But Tom Brady, come on, man. This guy is just incredible. And I was telling someone this today. Like, what he's doing right now is unprecedented, and we'll probably never see anything like this again. I mean, it was like the perfect match. He's got like the Nick Saban of the NFL as his coach, right? Bill Belichick. And then the only reason that he ever even got to start that first Super Bowl was because the other quarterback, which I think was Steve Berline, got hurt, and he was like stumbling around. I was like, it wasn't like they won the Super Bowl because of Tom Brady, but he did enough where they won the game. And since then, it's almost like Devontae Smith in a small kind of deal where he caught the touchdown to beat Georgia. Before that, though, he caught the touchdown to beat Mississippi State his freshman year. And then all of a sudden it was like the confidence from that, it's almost like destiny, right? And Tom Brady's the same way. The Chiefs offensive line is riddled right now. They lost their tackle. They have another tackle out. The Tampa Bay defense has been ferocious in this playoffs, and they've won because of defense. It really hasn't even been Tom Brady. I just think that Tom Brady's going to figure out a way to win another championship. And I think we're going to look back at this because Mahomes will win another one, maybe two more before it's all said and done, and go, do you remember that time that we had the dream matchup with Tom Brady against Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl? I just think this one's going to be really fun. So I'm looking forward to it. I'm fired up about the Super Bowl. And then, the commercials are always fun. So I've been trying to put together a Super Bowl party idea, or a place where we could all go watch it. So I hope you guys do the same thing. Enjoy it. It's the last football game for a while. I mean, besides the 8A game, so it's going to be a lot of fun. Getting a chance to see what happens with Tom Brady against Patrick Mahomes and all the other storylines that'll play out in this football game. So I'm taking the Buccaneers in this football game and a classic. And the other part of this is that Tom Brady's lost some Super Bowls, but they're always close. Like, it's not like they're going to go in there and get blown out. So I think it'll be a close game. So that's good. As far as what's coming up next, Wednesday, I will be on with Mr. Tony Tsoukalas, and we'll talk about what's happening with Alabama. And by then we'll know how the recruiting has turned out. Tomorrow night, don't forget that Kyle Henderson and Andrew Bone, the two superstars of Bama Insider, will have their show at 6:00, and we will have you updated on the Crimson Tide with signing day coming all week long. With that said, guys, thanks for doing the show. I had a lot of fun tonight.
Yeah, yes, definitely. And before we go, we gotta give a shout out to a serious super chat, $100 from Mekonic. Wow, man, that's awesome. I mean, we talk about throw a Super Bowl party. Well, that will certainly help. So we super appreciate that. That was a great super chat. Thank you so much for that.
And I got to say this. I mean, thanks for the super chat, but thanks also for the comment of the year. I mean, that was cracking me up, man. Like, I'm still laughing about you as the pianist, the pianist or whatever, right? And then
hey-o.
I'd say that right. And then and of course more Yinglings for me. But all right, guys. That was fun. Let's do it again next Monday, 6:00. And if you're hanging out with us right now, don't forget you can go back and listen to the show. You can always go back and watch it right here on YouTube, but you can also go and listen to it on our Bama Insider of Apple and Spotify or podcast channel. I'll get it out right. So, all right, for Tony and Trey, I'm Mick. Thanks everyone for making it a great night.